What if Eren's victory had led the world to its end? Did he achieve the freedom he sought so much, or did he just trap the world in a new cycle of destruction? In this theory, we will explore the dark consequences of this victory and what would happen to the survivors of a world devastated by the rumbling. With Eren victorious and the rumbling complete, the world beyond Paradise Island is destroyed, leaving Eldia as the only intact civilization. With no more external enemies, Paradise enters a new era of absolute sovereignty, but the victory comes with a bitter price. The Eldian society, previously oppressed and feared, now finds itself at the top of the global hierarchy. However, this new position raises internal questions: how to govern a devastated world. The government of Paradise, led by the military and the remaining heroes, faces an identity crisis. Without the external threat to unite the people, political tensions begin to arise. Some want to expand the territory and explore the resources of the devastated lands, while others believe that Paradise should isolate itself even more, protecting itself from any possible future resistance. This internal debate could lead to political fragmentation, putting the island at risk of civil war. Moreover, the technological void left by the global destruction paralyzes progress. Without the knowledge and innovations of the decimated nations, Paradise becomes stuck in a cycle of self-sufficiency, where stagnation threatens the evolution of society. With Eren as the victor, the debate over his legacy divides Paradise and its inhabitants. On one side, many see him as the savior who ensured Eldia's survival, eradicating external threats and elevating Paradise to absolute dominance. For these people, Eren becomes almost a messianic figure, venerated as the hero who made the ultimate sacrifice in the name of his people's freedom. On the other hand, many others see him as a genocidal tyrant. The weight of global destruction falls on those who believed in a less violent path, like Armin and Mikasa. Armin, who always advocated for dialogue and diplomacy, suffers with the guilt of not stopping his best friend, and now deals with the emotional consequences of witnessing billions of lives wiped out. Mikasa, whose loyalty to Eren was unshakable, feels betrayed and lost, questioning if she ever really knew him. Internally, Eren's victory could lead to the creation of a cult around his figure, with him being idolized as the founder of a new era for Eldia. However, this idolatry could quickly turn into tyranny, with the government using Eren's name to justify extreme actions, perpetuating a new form of oppression within Paradise. The conflict between these two views would create a fragmented society, where Eren's legacy would be both celebrated and hated. Former members of the Survey Corps, like Jean, Connie, and Historia, would face a difficult choice: follow the path left by Eren, or fight to rebuild Paradise around fairer values, trying to restore humanity in the midst of the chaos of a hopeless world. With Eren in absolute control of the founding Titan, Ymir's curse would not be broken, perpetuating the cycle of Titan power that has plagued the Eldians for centuries. Instead of freeing Ymir and her descendants from their curse, Eren would choose to maintain the Titan's power as a strategic weapon to ensure Paradise dominance over any future threats, both internal and external. With no enemies outside the island, the focus would turn inward. The Titan's power would become a currency of control, with Paradise government dividing the remaining Titans among its military leaders or new factions that would emerge. This would create a race for Titan power, where different groups within the island would compete for control of these devastating weapons. With power concentrated in the hands of a few, an authoritarian society would emerge, where those with Titan heritage would have incomparable influence and power. This continuation of Titan power would also open doors to dark experiments. Without an immediate external threat, the government or radical factions could seek ways to expand or enhance the Titans' powers, experimenting on Eldians and forcing heirs to assume new, more powerful forms. This quest for internal supremacy would have a devastating cost, creating a new era of suffering and fear, this time originating from within Paradise's own society. Furthermore, the constant fear of possible internal betrayal would create a state of extreme vigilance. Civilian groups could organize resistance against the government, fearing that Titan power would be used to maintain a tyrannical regime. This cycle of internal distrust, along with the overwhelming power of the Titans, would turn Paradise into a dystopian society, where the freedom Eren promised would become a cruel irony. The people of Paradise would be under the rule of their own overwhelming power, unable to escape the shadow of the Titans. Eren's victory would also open a vast philosophical and psychological void for both him and the survivors. The idea of freedom which had always driven Eren's actions, would now become a complex dilemma. Did he really achieve the freedom he sought? By decimating almost all of humanity, he ensured his people's survival, but at the same time created an empty world, governed by fear and destruction. Instead of freeing the Eldians, Eren may have trapped society in a perpetual cycle of surveillance, oppression, and distrust. For characters close to Eren, like Mikasa and Armin, the emotional burden would be unbearable. Mikasa, who dedicated her life to protecting Eren, would face an abyss of doubts. She would question whether her choices up to that point were motivated by her own desire for freedom or by an obsession with the man she believed she knew. Eren's emotional disconnection in his final moments would have left a deep scar on her, and the relationship between her personal feelings and her actions would become a continuous torment. Armin, on the other hand, who always saw Titan power as a burden and not a blessing, would be consumed by guilt for not finding a peaceful solution. He would have to live with the fact that his attempts to redeem Eren failed, leading to the deaths of billions. This guilt would erode his worldview, leading him to reflect on whether the ends justify the means, something he had always condemned in Eren. He and the survivors might constantly debate the moral ramifications of having allowed Eren to proceed with the rumbling society as a whole would also find itself in an existential dilemma. With the rest of the world destroyed, the Eldians would see themselves as the last humans. This would profoundly affect their view of life and death. The value of life, previously threatened by external enemies, would now be reassessed. Eldians could become a colder, more pragmatic society, where the survival of their own species takes precedence over any moral value. Moreover, the concept of freedom, which was the foundation of Eren's actions, would have a new meaning. The generation growing up in this new world would carry the perception that their freedom was built on massive destruction. Young people like Gabi and Falco, survivors of the chaos, would be confronted with the choice of accepting this new order or challenging the legacies imposed by Eren, seeking redemption for future generations. Despite the magnitude of the rumbling, it's unlikely that Eren managed to exterminate all humans outside of Paradise. Small pockets of survivors could have escaped the destruction, hiding in remote areas or in inaccessible mountainous regions. These survivors, though small in number, would harbor immense hatred toward Eren and the Eldians, sowing the seeds for resistance against Paradis' new regime. Over time, these groups could reorganize, joining forces and attempting to rebuild what was left of their societies. The survival of civilians in inhospitable places could give rise to a new generation of warriors, hardened by the struggle for survival and motivated by revenge. Figures like Gabi and Falco, who were already shaped by war, could become leaders of this resistance, seeking retaliation and perhaps even the definitive end of Titan power. As Paradis grows stronger internally, this slow but growing resistance would represent a new threat. Isolated, without allies or advanced technology, these survivors would need to be resourceful, possibly using conventional weapons or developing new strategies to face the Titans. The rise of this resistance would be seen as a spark of hope against Paradis' absolute dominance, paving the way for future wars or insurrections. Furthermore, in the long term, entire regions could rise again over the course of decades or centuries. Communities of survivors could start rebuilding civilizations in the shadows, knowing that time is on their side. Eventually, this could lead to a new era of global war, once again making Paradise a target of vengeance and hatred, repeating the cycle of violence that Eren so desperately tried to break. Finally, Eren's victory could merely perpetuate the cycle of violence that has always permeated the world of Attack on Titan. Although the rumbling wiped out much of humanity, the seeds of a new conflict would inevitably bloom. External survivors, internal rebellions, and the weight of Titan power would ensure that the world would never be in absolute peace. This new era, marked by Paradis' supremacy, would not be free of conflict. The very power of the Titans, the tool that ensured Eren's victory, would continue to be a divisive and dangerous force within Eldian society. The humans outside of Paradis, survivors of the rumbling god, would eventually reorganize and seek retaliation. History would show that no tyranny lasts forever, and just as Paradis rose, it too would fall. The cycle of hatred, which Eren so desperately tried to break, would in fact be fueled by his own actions. The extermination of humanity would create a new kind of hatred between the Eldians and any remnants outside the island. The belief that freedom can only be achieved by annihilating the enemy would lead future generations to repeat the mistakes of their predecessors, fueling the endless cycle of violence, destruction, and reconstruction. Thus, EREN, by winning, would not have brought true peace or lasting freedom, but rather a new era of uncertainties, where the survivors and future generations would continue to struggle under the weight of a bloodstained past. EREN's victory would merely mark the beginning of a new chapter in the endless cycle of conflicts that defines the world of Attack on Titan. Did you enjoy this theory about what the world would be like if EREN had won the final battle? The consequences would be devastating, and the legacy he left behind would echo for generations. If you like this dark journey through the future of Attack on Titan, don't forget to hit that like button to help the channel grow. And of course, subscribe to the channel for more theories, analysis, and everything about the world of anime. In the final screen, you'll find another unmissable video to watch, so click there and keep exploring this universe with us. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.